So today I want to talk about the lies that have been told by the Kendrick Johnson family in the last 9 years. Most of them were told in the first 2 years, but they're still going strong. And I'm calling them lies because that is what they are. They are not misstatements of fact. There is no way that they could get out there and say these things without purposefully trying to lie to the public. So, and these aren't even all of them. I think I collected 21 here. Okay, so let's start. I've talked already about the big lie that they told early on, saying that his face looks like that due to a beating. And in fact, it was after the body had been autopsied and the Johnsons went to the funeral home and took a picture of his face before the funeral home workers had a chance to reconstruct it. They made a big deal about saying that Sheriff Prine said no foul play and that this was somehow indicative that they weren't doing a proper investigation. What he said, which was confirmed by other people, we don't see any signs of foul play upon our initial examination, but the body is going to be sent to the GBI medical examiner for a complete autopsy. They claimed that the sheriff, the superintendent, and the FBI agent transported KJ's body to Lowndes High School and rolled his body in the mat and ordered two students to find the body. Chevene King, the attorney for the Johnsons, made this statement in a legal court filing, but he withdrew it, saying that it was a, quote, typo. And there is at least one article on the web that you can look at. It's from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Actually, I believe there's two articles, one from AJC and one from the Orlando Sentinel, where two different reporters analyzed this particular, quote, typo. And in my opinion, there's no way that you could make this type of a mistake unless you were purposefully trying to incite outrage and craziness from your followers regarding how this investigation was conducted. Okay, they claimed that the FBI agent and the school and the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department corrupted the school video. And Victor Blackwell got on national TV and made the same claims. And he found a so-called expert named Grant Fredericks, who obviously didn't understand that the cameras were motion activated and that the motion sensors had a limited range. So the FBI techs from the Quantico lab at their headquarters came and took the servers, I believe, and analyzed the video, found no missing video. Also, a Valdosta Daily Times report written by two different reporters. They follow the video, they follow Kendrick through the school, and you can find this on the web, Kendrick's Final Walk. And it is clear that there is no missing video as far as KJ walking through the school, because you can follow him all along, and it is clear that when he goes over to the corner where he is later found, nobody follows him. The parents claimed several times that his body was cooked at the Valdosta Crime Lab, and I believe you can find a video, I looked at it this week, where Mrs. Johnson is saying that the crime lab was not operational. I think she means the body cooler was not operational. And I talked about how I went to the Valdosta Crime Lab 3 different times, interviewed the director, interviewed various technicians and crime scene investigators that work there. I was shown the backup machines that would kick into play in case the temperature dropped dramatically or went up dramatically, maybe due to a power outage or a malfunction. They have backup systems, just like at a hospital morgue. And the Valdosta Crime Lab is accredited, meaning that they have outside inspectors come in and sign off on all of the procedures and equipment that the crime lab keeps there. The crime lab serves several counties here in South Georgia, and no one has ever made that accusation except the Johnsons. They claim that a boy who was 60 miles away on a wrestling team trip had something to do with KJ's death, And the fact that he was too far away to have been involved was told to the family and the attorney repeatedly, but that didn't stop them from accusing him. They said that a boy that was on the other side of the school had something to do with his death, and they were told repeatedly that there was no way he could have, because so many witnesses and video put him on the other side of the school and put KJ alive going into the gym and nobody following him. But that didn't stop them from suing both of those boys and their father. They claimed that his organs were destroyed to hide evidence. Now, this is still confusing, and a clear answer has not been reached. But what we know is that the GBI autopsy took the organs out of the body, studied them, analyzed them, claimed there was nothing to show anything wrong insofar as disease or drug toxicology or any kind of foul play. They made tissue samples. Those tissue samples are still in storage. Those tissue samples were made available to the Johnson's private pathologist, and he did not find anything abnormal with the tissue samples. So then later on, the funeral home said that we never received the organs from the GBI, but when the Johnsons sued the funeral home, I was told that the funeral home director admits or states that there was a worker who possibly disposed of them because they were in an advanced state of decomposition. And to my understanding, there is no law in Georgia which requires a funeral home to tell a family what we are doing with your loved one's organs. Even if there's not a question about how someone dies, often in the state of a decomposed body, often the organs are not kept and embalmed because it is just too difficult to preserve organs that are in an advanced state of decomposition. And later on, they find out that the funeral home used newspaper. The funeral home was cleared by the state laws in Georgia. Newspaper is not best practice. Sawdust or cotton is preferred, but newspaper is not breaking the law. You have to stuff the body cavity with something to prepare a body for the funeral. And as I've said repeatedly, the Johnsons wanted an open casket funeral. Okay, they made a big deal about KJ having to ride home in a police car a year to year and a half after a fight with Brian Bell on the school bus, the football bus that was going to an away game. I interviewed the school resource officer, a black woman. She's a deputy with the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department, and she was friends with the Johnson family. You can also find statements from her in the case file. So basically, she says KJ rode home in the front seat. They listened to music, they talked, and that this was a blessing to KJ because he didn't have to, quote, find his own way home, which meant Greyhound bus, Trailways bus, catching a ride with someone else. It was much safer, obviously, for KJ to ride home with a school resource officer. Okay, they claimed that the Obama DOJ told the Johnson family that the Anderson autopsy, that was their private autopsy, was, quote, correct. When the DOJ was contacted by a Valdosta Today reporter, the DOJ said, read our statement, and you can find their statement on the web, and they say the DOJ found no evidence of murder or any other crime after a 2.5-year investigation. So Sheriff Paulk has the DOJ files, which have not been released to the public yet, but hopefully a judge will release them. And if the DOJ said that the Anderson autopsy was correct, then I, for the life of me, can't understand why they would close their investigation and make such a strong statement. They also talked about the medical examiners that they hired to review both the Anderson autopsy and the GBI medical examiner autopsy. They claimed that the coroner said the body had been moved. That's right, it had. The coach and the students pulled down the mats trying to get to KJ. It was only after they realized that he was dead that they called the EMTs and the CSI team. Okay, the CSI team is the group that photographs a death scene, so they obviously were called after all the vertical mats had been pulled down, so there are no photos of KJ in the vertical upright mats that were positioned in the corner, about 15 or 20 of them in the corner of the gym. The coroner, the Johnsons claim that the coroner says no cooperation at the death scene. Well, that is not a lie. The coroner did state that, and I probably shouldn't have included it in here, but let me just explain. The sheriff did not call the coroner immediately, which was a mistake and illegal under Georgia law. But the sheriff took full responsibility for that mistake. Even if the coroner had been called immediately, he's not a medical examiner. Georgia doesn't require our coroners to have anything except a high school degree. He didn't have any background in science. A coroner in Georgia, unless you work in Atlanta, Savannah, Columbus, Macon, a big city, all you do is take custody of the body, put it in a body bag, seal it. So I shouldn't have left this in here. This is true. The coroner did say no cooperation at the death scene, and that was because he was not called. Okay, here's a lie. The white boys confessed to Ryan Anthony Domek Hernandez, and I highlighted this because this was ascertained to be, or adjudicated to be, a false confession. And a judge went further and said that the Johnsons were fabricating evidence. And the reason that they said it was a false confession was because his statements were unsupported by the timeline, by the location of residences, and his inability to identify photos of the two boys. Additionally, his credibility, as in, should you believe what this person says? He has a lengthy criminal record. He has heroin use in his background. He admitted to be an addict. And then right around the time of him coming forth with this so-called confession, he had some kind of mentally ill breakdown where he broke into a woman's house, sliced his arm, went to the hospital, said his name was John Doe. Obviously, he was trying to hide from the police at that point. And then when the police finally realized who he was, because they were looking for him because of the woman whose house had been broken into, he said, I want to bleed out here in the hospital. So if you think that a person like that should be believed without any supporting evidence, then you need to reevaluate the way you make decisions. As I said, his statements were unsupported by any other possible evidence. The Johnsons lied about Lowndes High School not giving KJ an honorary diploma. That's right, they didn't. But the Johnsons said it was because the Johnsons had accused the school of hiding his murder. Lowndes High School doesn't give any student who has died, an honorary degree unless they've completed the requirements for graduation. The Johnsons claimed that Lowndes High School sent no one to KJ's funeral when in fact there were teachers, school administrators, and board members at his funeral. They claimed that a son of a state representative was involved. That particular child was in middle school. They claimed that the sheriff's son was involved. The sheriff does not have a son or a grandson. They claimed many times that they were collecting money for a reward, and in 9 years the Johnson family has never offered a reward. Now they're collecting money for litigation, even though their first two attorneys were working pro bono, that's Chevene King and Ben Crump, and even though all their lawsuits have been dismissed against over 40 people, and even though they have been sanctioned with $300,000 in damages, quote, attorney's fees, against the people they falsely accused. And then their attorney stated in court, and this is a blatant lie, and there's more lies that Chevene King has told in public and in private, and I'm going to come back to one really outrageous one in another video. But he said in court, the absence of evidence is our evidence of a vast conspiracy. I heard him say that. And it was right after that that the judge accused the attorney and the family of fabricating evidence because of this Ryan Domek Hernandez false confession. And the opposing attorneys stated that a court cannot prove murder without any evidence whatsoever. So, as I've said before, I want you to consider this. What if a white attorney stood up and said, the absence of evidence is our evidence of a vast conspiracy to protect the innocence of two black boys? Would you sit by and allow that to happen if a white attorney said, just because we have no evidence, all that proves is that they hid all the evidence and these two black boys are still guilty? Would you allow that to happen in your community? Well, I don't know who you are in regards to how you view evidence and convictions and accusations, but I'm going to protect two innocent white kids as much as I would protect two innocent black kids when a mob and a group of people like this come for them and they have no evidence. So wipe your conscience, shame on you, and think about what it means to convict people of murder or to prove murder. Okay, they claimed, the Johnsons, this is another lie. They got out in public and said they were banned from graduation. No, they were not, but they chose not to attend graduation because instead they wanted to have a demonstration outside the school accusing everyone in the school of murder conspiracy. And at that point in time, they were associating with a guy named Eric Shepard, and you can look up his criminal record on the web. And he was making threats to murder all law enforcement officers and white people. So the school asked, and the family claimed that he was a strong Kendrick Johnson supporter. So they willingly associated with him. In fact, their spokesperson, Marcus Coleman, organized a press conference with an attorney in Atlanta named Mawuli Davis in order to claim that the only reason that Eric Shepard was being targeted was because of his association with the Kendrick Johnson family. And I just told you, he was publicly threatening to murder all law enforcement officers and white people. So the school asked for protection from the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department, GBI, FBI, Georgia Highway Patrol got involved, and the Valdosta Police Department got involved. They even had to, the two of the four students that the Johnson family accused had to wear bulletproof vests, and the police put anti-sniper officers and SWAT on patrol to protect against Eric Shepard or any other unhinged follower from coming to the Lowndes High School graduation and terrorizing innocent people. Okay, and then another lie that they've made periodically and are still making is that all the local civil rights leaders were paid off to walk away. Let me just give you some facts. The president of the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, she paid Mrs. Johnson's bail when Mrs. Johnson and her sisters were arrested for civil disobedience. He offered his church to the Reverend Al Sharpton rally in order to raise a reward, which the Johnsons never offered, even though they raised $8,000. And he put together a reward of $10,000 with the help from a local businessman. The NAACP leaders, I was one of them, helped mobilize people to bring in the Obama DOJ to come in to investigate. So does this all sound like civil rights leaders were paid off to walk away from this? So just think about the things that I've said, and I'm going to bring this back to Ash Patino and her podcast because she says that she got the Johnsons' blessings, and she says that in one of her podcasts, she makes a big deal about how the Johnsons had to prove that they were good people. So I will stand up in court and I will attest to my knowledge of all these outright lies and fabrications that were told by the Johnson family and their attorney, Chevene King. And I stand by what I say. And if you guys want to follow a family like this and an attorney like this down the path of perdition, then a pox on all your houses.